Hi, everyone. Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. This is a place where we have conversations with in house leaders about things they care about. It turns out that in house leaders care about all kinds of things. Yes, they care about law. Yes, they care about their careers. Yes, they have personal lives. And yes, they have hobbies. This is where we share it all because in house leaders are human first. And it's sometimes very helpful to see examples and learn tips and tricks. And live the dream that you may or have known what it is or discovered it in the process. Many of the conversations, the speakers who come to us, the guests who visit us are nominations from you. So I welcome you to provide new nominations. Let me know who you want to learn from and who you want to invite on the show and have the conversation. As a reminder, you learn a lot more and a lot better if you ask questions. So be part of the conversation. Say hello. Our guests love when you say hello. And yes, most definitely, if you have questions, do ask questions. As I said, you learn a whole lot more when you do. With that in mind, I will ask our fantastic guest to introduce herself. Aparna, I'm so excited about this conversation. Please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Olga, for having me. This is truly fun, a little nerve wracking, but my name is Aparna Williams. I'm currently the general counsel of Coal Fire Systems. And I am really excited to be here to chat through some things to help our next gen really enhance, their skills and tools for being great in-house legal leaders.
I am excited about this conversation, and we do have Candy who said hello. So thank you for saying hi. Um, Tell us more a little bit about the company, what it does, and because not everybody may be familiar with it.
Yeah, so Coal Fire, we're a services company. We do IT, cybersecurity, audits, assessments. Really, hot topic right now. It's kind of my home. I've been in cybersecurity for 21 years. I don't love saying that number, but so if you have any needs for certifications, ISO, FedRAMP, SOC 2, all the fancy acronyms, we're your firm.
Oh, I love it. 21 years is something that we should all wear proudly. And we have another person who says hello. So, hello, whoever you are. Um, you weren't born a general counsel, you become a general counsel. What was your road to becoming one?
I'm gonna start with like just serendipity and dumb luck. This is why I think this conversation in particular, the topic that we picked, is really important. I'm coaching, which is another piece of networking and mentoring. I actually started out as a contracts negotiator. It was something that I sought out to do after law school. I had a very unique experience to go in house directly out of school, which was something I had hoped to do. I just didn't know back then if it was an option. And my manager and mentor will tell you she hired me off of half a resume. I was exactly what she needed at the time. Just enough experience, not too much. I stayed with the same company for 19 years. Was able to change roles within that company, raise my hand every time someone said like, "Hey, who wants to do this?" Becoming a general counsel wasn't even purposeful. I sort of just took it as I went. Started a family, decided was right for me at the time. What kind of challenge was I looking for? If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said I didn't want to be a general counsel. I loved being, support. I loved being like a strong number two in a legal team. I would say just in the past year or so, with all of the opportunities opening up, especially with remote work and seeing all of the different companies that I could go to if I was successful, that's really what urged me to take the challenge, take the plunge.
Oh, I love that. We're gonna talk more about that. We have a few more people saying hello, and apparently have a new bestie. I'm sure you know what that means. I don't, but I'm glad for both of you. Um, um, okay, 19 years. We're gonna
Yeah.
talk about that. 19 years.
Oh,
My
yeah.
longest job has been 5. So Tell me. How
Well,
you
most people will stay in a job 3 to 5 years, I think is the average. You're supposed to change jobs or careers for between 4 and 8 times in
Thank
your
you.
life.
You're making me feel normal. Good.
So, I moved house a lot though. So I think instead of doing it on the job front, I moved house like 5 times in 6 years. So my job was my stability, but I just had an amazing set of management. All these opportunities came up. I was in, the largest cybersecurity company in the world, and there just wasn't a reason to leave. And I wasn't complacent. I kept getting new opportunities. I kept, getting more responsibility. And honestly, despite us being sold, or if not for us being sold, I probably could still be there today. We could be going on 21 years.
That is very interesting. I do find that is actually my observation that in general people actually do switch jobs 3 to 5 years. Sometimes they just do it within the same company. So that's usually is the secret to staying somewhere
Yeah.
for decades. You also mentioned this hand raising thing. Something comes up and you raise your hand. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. It's either like the stupidest thing you could do or it's the smartest thing you can do, right? But I was very lucky that, very early on in my career, I had people in the business, because I was in house, say to me, like, don't pass up any opportunity, right? Even if you're scared to death of how you're going to do this, just raise your hand and say you'll do it. Because if you don't raise your hand, someone else will. They're going to get the opportunity. They're going to learn, and you're just be left in the dust.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's saying yes to things that scare you sometimes is a
Yeah.
thing to do. I love it. So you recently become the general counsel. How did that happen?
You know, it's not the topic for today, because I was going to focus on coaching, but I'll tell you how it happened. I have an amazing mentor. So, she's my fairy god mentor, as I call her. And I was not really looking for a new role, but she had come across a role that was in sort of like the Whisper Network. She's an incredibly accomplished and fantastic general counsel. And she decided that that role wasn't good for what she wanted next. But she actually whispered my name and said, I think I have someone who would be great for this. And lucky for me, she was right, and they thought she was right. And I ended up in a fantastic organization.
I love it. I love so many things about this story, including women supporting women. I
Absolutely.
got my first and second general counsel position through a woman whispering my name. One was more senior to me, and one was more junior to me.
Mm.
So you never know who's whispering. On that note, there are a number of whisperers here in the crowd, and people saying things, and they love what you say and sharing. So
Yeah.
thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Candy, for commenting and supporting. We all appreciate it. And yes, I'm well aware why we're here today. We will talk about coaching. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Uh,
up for anything, Olga. You make it easy.
yeah, we definitely gonna go for it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about non-legal skills, just sort of generally. Why are they important? Which ones are more important, and then maybe how do you get some?
Yeah. So, when we talk about things like soft skills and whatnot, right? Everybody hears these buzzwords, the soft skills, empathy, is a word that like I really hope everyone actually understands in this day and age. But I always said, as I got more responsibility, as I was promoted, somebody trusted me to run a team and actually be someone's manager. And I was sitting there like, they didn't teach us this in law school. I do not know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I don't know how I'm supposed to do it. Like, am I going to be good at it? Am I going to be terrible? Am I a micromanager? Like, all these questions, would just come flooding in. And yes, I read a ton of books because that's my comfort zone, right? I just go back to read when I don't know something. And so it really is just a journey. I think you have to be really open to learning these new skills. So, law school doesn't teach you to be a manager, doesn't teach you project management, doesn't teach you how to be a coach or a mentor. We learn all of these really practical skills. But just like a doctor needs to learn bedside manner, I think as lawyers, we have to learn all the things that go around dealing with people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you said you cope with stress by reading. I usually say I cope with stress by Googling. I think for those of us who gravitated toward law school, there is a comfort in seeing words on the
Yeah,
page. It's a security blanket. You
it is.
mentioned some words around being a mentor and coach. Um, w- so those are different things. What is the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I had a really fun path on learning the difference. I tried to run a mentor program, and I was squishing people together who I thought wanted to talk about the same things and whatnot. What I learned is you can't force mentoring. Mentor is a very organic relationship. Usually, you find someone in your journey, and like you said, they could be more senior, they could be junior, and this is a person who just really, you click with, and they help you through all of the things, right? The hard decisions, right? I never make a career move without talking to my mentor. I think I talked to my mentor before having a child, right? So this is a really special relationship in your life, and it usually happens very organically. Coaching, though, is really cool because it doesn't require a forced relationship, and it doesn't require, that level of intimacy if you don't want it, right? Someone who's coaching someone else is really helping them learn to solve problems using their own skills, their own experience, and reaching, deep down inside yourself to, handle something on your own, right? Like coping. The word you used was coping. I think coaching and coping go together, right? Because if you teach somebody that they are capable of solving problems on their own by using all the things they know, that is one of the most powerful things that I think you can share with somebody.
Yeah, yeah. I thank you for driving that difference. So, have you attempted to be somebody's coach? And who, even if it was a epic success or a failure,
Yeah. Yeah.
how did it go? What did you learn from it?
Well, I think I fell into it because, like I said, right, my company that I was with for 19 years, when we found out that we were being sold, I had 6 people reporting to me, and I immediately went into like, oh my gosh, I have to take care of my team. Like, even if they're not going to be my team anymore, I still felt very responsible for what was going to happen to them next. And I was lucky enough to be given a professional coach through a management program, right? Just one of the best gifts I've ever had in corporate America. And I just, put all of that into action, tried my best to really understand what everybody wanted. You're getting the rug pulled out from under you, and just understand what they wanted next. And just, one person in particular, a young lawyer that I had hired, and she and I still, we speak every day. So I think I've entered mentor status with her, but it
Uh-huh.
really started out as coaching, helping her understand what she was looking for. What did she want? She thought she was where she was going to be. And then all of a sudden she had to go somewhere else, but she didn't know where that somewhere else was because it wasn't her choice.
Yeah, very interesting. You mentioned formal coaching, and there's a proliferation of coaching on social media. You have a lot of choices now online on LinkedIn. You have gifts of corporate America, as you said. I've been given one coach, or actually, I was given more than one coach throughout my as an executive. That's actually a really interesting observation. The executive is actually much more likely to get a coach. I did not receive one as a sort of in the middle of my career, but I did receive one as I was becoming first-time executive, and then the executives were getting one in my second and third job. So I had coaches through that, which is really interesting that we think that executives need to be coached, but the rest of the employees don't. Um, so you mentioned the formal coaching. I'm just curious. You've gone through it. What do you think? Was it worth it? Would you do it again? How do you identify the areas where to be coached? Like, what does that process look for you?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think if you don't go through it, you don't get the sense of what it really is. I do not have formal training. I don't call myself a formal coach. There are people who are very, credentialed, and they know what the heck they're doing. My hope is that in the legal profession, we understand that this is a skill that we should learn as managers, leaders. Even if you're an individual contributor, right? You can always contribute to the larger team by being able to coach someone that doesn't even report to you. But I think it's worth it. You made an excellent point, though, right? Don't save it for the executives, right? Save it for someone who is in a transition. If you just made a stellar performer into a manager, that's when you give them a coach, because they don't know what the heck they're doing, just like I didn't know. And I feel like I just got super lucky. I had really amazing colleagues. They were very forgiving. They gave me a lot of leniency. I did have someone who was very difficult on my team, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And that was super stressful.
Yeah, yeah. It's really funny. I didn't really, I wasn't aware of coaching when I was kind of younger and in my career, and I wasn't seeking it. It was sort of given to me, and some of the things that were taught to me by then I would probably already learned by banging my head against the wall
Yeah.
many times and hoping not to get a concussion. Um, so I do think that that coaching, a lot of coaching needs to happen earlier, and it becomes probably an acquired taste. How early do you think it should start? Do you think we should start all the way in law school? Do you think we should teach those skills? And like seeking help is a skill, and I can tell you it may or may not be natural to you to do that. What do you think?
I think it would be excellent to teach it in law school, honestly, right? And speaking of banging your head against the wall, I mean, I have had 2 concussions, so I'm perfectly aware of what that feels like.
I wasn't talking about literal. You will not see me do that. I took for clarity. That's not what I was doing. But sometimes it feels like that, no?
No, and yeah, I can tell you the work stress felt a lot worse than the actual concussion. No, I think it would be
Thank you for clarifying. Especially, thank you. I will not try that at home. Don't try that
do
at home
not.
if you're watching. Do ask questions. Now's the time to ask questions. Um, having dealt with all kinds of people, people is a wild card in any adventure. Some of the biggest head banging happened there.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think, just like you learn to do trial law and you learn to, do appeals, and you're putting yourself out there, right? Like in law school, we all get taught how to present our cases and things like that. I think it would be an excellent addition to any curriculum. These are leadership skills, management skills, right? Our friends who do the 4-year JD MBA, I think they get really lucky, right? Because they get that next level of training when they're going to go into the corporate world, in business, etc. Right? I guess the legal tradition is that we're going to law firms, and that we're going to end up in doing case law and things like that, right? And the world is changing.
I mean, there is. I've talked to enough folks who have MBA. I think MBA generally just teaches you to be sort of a leader, and for that you need skills other than accounting.
Mhm.
Whereas we as lawyers are often taught to be a support role,
Yeah.
and that's why there is sort of emphasis, I think, on sort of substantive skills and how to master the art of influence. That's a very different art than the art of leadership, right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that you bring a comparison to the MBA. I think there is a reason why they're structured differently, and why sometimes people gravitate to different programs. We're coming to the end. I have a few more questions. I would be amiss not to ask you about kind of technology and the role it plays in this coaching. I've advised a number of businesses who essentially coached at scale.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn is a piece of technology that allows you to find coaches, um, you know, using technology. So, what are your thoughts there? What about technology for coaching, or using technology, reaching all levels, everyone,
Yeah.
where they are, when they actually need it?
That's what I love about it, right? You hit on exactly the things I love, is that, I can be sitting here outside of Washington, D.C., and if there is someone who is in, Fargo, I don't know if it's North or South Dakota, I can have some sort of impact on what they're doing, right? And they don't get left out. Now that after the pandemic, I've been remote for 16 years. I understand how wonderful technology can be for keeping people connected, but I think technology has not only improved the ability for us to reach, people that we wouldn't necessarily be able to influence or assist, but I also think it's got deep impact on DE&I initiatives. I think it really allows us to, reach out, coach, mentor, all of those things, and really look to that generation that's coming up behind us and say, like, we're gonna build you up so that you can, you know not just learn from our mistakes, but also gracefully make your own mistakes, right? And technology keeps us connected so that we're all laughing at each other as we fall down, as we should.
Yeah, that is the thing to do. So you mentioned D&I, very popular conversation in corporate America generally. I
Mhm.
would say even specifically among general counsel, super, super,
Super.
super timely conversation,
Yeah.
including whether general counsel should lead those initiatives because we historically have been the consciousness of the organization, including because that's the sort of related to law and doing the right thing. So just curious, kind of how you think of it in the context of being the general counsel, being a
Mhm.
leader in your company, being a legal face of your company. How do you think of coaching and D&I in this legal leadership context?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks, especially in the employee resource groups, right? The whole key is learning how to advocate for yourself and how to really raise issues that are important that haven't historically been important to the majority. So I think, as general counsels or just the legal team in general, we're always raising issues that are unpopular and that people don't particularly want to hear, but we see a risk or we see a reward that they're just not seeing because they have a different perspective. I think GCs should definitely be involved deeply in the DE&I initiatives. I don't have a feeling either way of whether they should lead them. I feel like there might be some people who we should support, we should sponsor, we should be engaged. But I think they're roles that are more suited, right, to being able to make that successful, to really push, because we get distracted as GCs by a lot of things. But it's important to be able to advocate for yourself, and that's where I see coaching really having an impact in training people. These are the skills you have, this is the voice you have, these are the perspectives you have, this is the strength you have to be able to raise unpopular or uncommon or difficult conversations with other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you. That is a context specific question. I mean, depends on the interest of GC
It
and who
does.
else in the mix, right?
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about you mentioned it a couple of times. Not everyone wants to be a manager, and in fact, I can tell you that in my career, I made decisions to have more or fewer reports depending what I need to focus on, because doing a good job, you know, growing talent
Hmm.
and managing, and I like to use more precise words because I think you have more responsibility than to just manage.
Yeah.
So it's actually doing a good job at that takes time and commitment and effort and resources and headspace.
So
And
true.
like headspace sometimes is a challenge. And I can tell you if I'm in the middle of a large transaction, for example, or the company really needs my laser focus, I probably don't have headspace to do what needs to be done to help this professional, grow and mature and thrive. So I'm just curious, kind of how you look through. I don't want to be a manager general, or I don't want to be a manager right now,
Mhm.
because it's an important thing I think to reflect on when you take on a job.
It really is, and I think people just assume that everybody who's in-house and legal eventually wants to be a general counsel. I'm living proof that that wasn't the case, right? Until I got to a certain point in my life, and that centered around my family, how old my child is, where I had the headspace to be able to pay attention. I don't feel like I was keeping myself back or anything. I felt like I was making a really smart choice for what I wanted for my life. So I think it's important to have those conversations with anyone that you think, is just well suited to a role that does have management responsibilities. And I call managing a responsibility. I'll never forget my husband, who did go through an MBA program, was a leader, at one point led an organization of over 200 people. And his words were like, "Oh, yeah, don't become a manager." And I was like, "No
Don't
way."
do that. Whatever you do,
Yeah.
do not do that.
100%. And I was like, no, I love people. I love developing people. I love seeing people achieve their dreams. And I think, when you reframe what being a manager is into things like developing someone, helping them achieve their dreams, setting really realistic expectations, I think that helps, people who are looking at you as a leader sort of absorb, like, what is that responsibility. And if someone truly doesn't want to be a manager, or they don't even want to be coached, right, that's the other thing. Being open to coaching is a mindset. You just have to respect that, right? But have the conversations. You have to have the conversations.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. The only thing I would add, there's a real difference between being the general counsel and number two lawyer. I had both jobs; those are very different jobs.
Yeah.
If you want to be on the cutting edge of legal issues, you probably don't want to be the general counsel in many companies. You actually want to be the number two, who has an opportunity to pick the most difficult, interesting, unusual specimen of issues that you want to deal with. If you want to, however, deal with people issues, not just on your team, but on the executive team with your peers on the board, yeah, that may be the general counsel role. It's a
Yeah.
different, it's a very different job, and just because it's sort of higher on the whatever org
The
chart you
scale.
have doesn't mean it's better. It's a very different job, and
It is. It is. Yeah.
people is a wild card, and they bring joy and stress into your life. I'm gonna ask you one last question because you mentioned that not everyone is open to being coached. It's actually a skill that one ought to develop to progress. So, and again, it could be a point in time skill. I mean, I'd be open to being coached because today I don't have a headspace and I'm solving other things. So, kind of curious how you think about, like, so you have someone on your team who is not open to being coached. What's next?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really understanding what they want for themselves, right? So like teaching someone is very different. That's a lot of talking at somebody. It's a lot of telling them what you want them to know, what you want them to do. I think when you express to somebody like, "Hey, I'd love to give you some coaching," right, to like help you develop yourself, you have to define it properly. And like you said, coaching is a buzzword. Coaching is everywhere. People are waking up and deciding they're going to be a coach today. I think you have to know what it really means, because at the end of the day, it's about the other person. It's about the person being coached, and you have to help them understand that this is a growth gift to them, right? And if they're not open to it, right, if they don't have that skill to ask for help, you're going to be beating your head against a wall. And all you have to do is hope that you give them an opportunity somewhere later when they're ready for it. Maybe somebody else is better suited. Maybe that person, doesn't want to be in that process with you, but they can find it somewhere else. So I think you just can't take it personally. Do what you can to really explain to them what coaching is and why it's going to be an asset for their growth and development. And when they make mistakes, helping pick them back up.
Yeah, I did that. I love that. I love the way you think about it. Aparna, this has been a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it,
Loved
and
it.
I learned so much from you. And I want to thank you for sharing your experiences and how you grew in the company and the opportunities that intentional kind of positioning and taking what you have in front of you have brought to you. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. I want to give you the sort of opportunity to say goodbye to the audience that has been very engaged. So thank you, audience, for being a great audience and supporting Aparna in this conversation. What is the one or two takeaways you want people to get from this conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a little cliche, but I want to say, as you rise to a new level and as you level up, please always look back and think about the people that you can pull along. I think that is key to, first of all, not having to do all the work yourself. And then, think about developing your own skills, right? If you're a manager or a leader, or you want to be a leader, think about developing the skills to be able to coach someone and to really advocate for this, nice extra asset that you can bring to an organization.
And on that note, I don't have much to add. Do that. I think that's a really fantastic thing to do. Um, if you want to hear from more leaders like Aparna who are doing amazing things and we can all collectively learn from, whether it's career, substantive law, or your recreational ambition, which could be anything. Let me know. Please nominate someone that you want to hear from, and if that someone is you, nominate yourself. I consider it to be an act of courage to nominate yourself. um, with that in mind, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being active and engaged and supportive. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.